Good evening, everyone. Myself, some people would have known, some people I'm new to you, so I'll introduce myself. My name is Christopher Gautam. Right, I will be your instructor for economics. There are two parts to it: economics and business environment. Right, so both of those I will be taking, but for now, we will concentrate on economics. All right, so here this business economics has five subjects or five chapters to be precise, right? First one deals with demand chapter and supply and types of markets, dd, ss, and markets, right? That's the first chapter. The second chapter deals with national income. Bharat ka income, we are going to see how is Bharat income. Hmm? Third one is the union budget chapter, right? These three chapters are concept chapters. What is this concept chapters? That means they can ask practical questions from this, right? There is something for you to learn from me, and this is very important, right? If you do not attend these classes regularly, you will miss out certain concepts. So very important that you practice with me in these three chapters. There is fourth chapter and fifth chapter, right? Fourth is what? Financial system, and the fifth chapter is Indian economy is the best economy. Okay, there are 4 and 5 chapters. This is theoretical in nature. Now, I mean theoretical, it's absolute facts and nature. I mean, it is very dry, but we'll take it in a different approach, right? This first three things I will be helping you. The fourth and fifth chapter, you would be helping me, in the sense that for fourth and fifth chapter, I would be providing you the notes, right? I will be providing you the shortcut notes, whatever is in your reference book, right? And you have to study those chapters, right, before the class starts, and then come and attend the class. In during the classes, I will be asking MCQ questions, because your exam is MCQ, right? I'll be asking only MCQ questions, and we will be answering that. Through that process, I'll be teaching you. Imagine, for example, let's say financial systems, right? RBI was set up in which year? Option A 1935, option B 1925, option C 1945, so on and so forth. Questions can be asked in this nature. What will I come and teach you in that? I will teach you RBI was set up in 1945, 35. You will be like, okay, sir, we can itself read it, right? That is why in beforehand itself I'm saying you these chapters I will give you the notes. It will be a crisp notes of whatever your study material is, right? You have to study that and come and attend the class. During the class, I'll be asking you all those concepts. When was RBI established? What are the number of private banks? Everything. If there is a concept, I'll explain the concepts also in that chapter. But it'll be MCQ based learning. So once you are done with it, so the class also will be interactive. You will be answering the questions. Through that, you will know. See, A, B, C, D is there, right? If you know that RBI was set up in 1935, it's okay. Now you have learned something. A is the answer. So in the exam also, you will answer it in the right manner. That is my process of teaching, right? With regards to the first three chapters, I will explain you the concept. Immediately, I'll ask you a MCQ paper, a question. So mine is more practice driven teaching, so that you learn a concept and you solve a question, and that registers in your head, right? So sir, what all have you covered in your study material, or what are you going to plan to cover in your lessons? uh, Guys, your reference book, your reference book 100% is going to be covered. Okay, so if you're going to study my notes, I would not recommend anyone. I would normally not say this to any other subject, but this I felt, please do not refer your study book, your reference book provided by the institute, because they have little bit confused it, they have complicated it, and that will not serve your exam purpose. So please refer to my study material, that would be enough. I would not say normally this, but in this subject and this the way the book was written, I felt please refer to my books alone. Otherwise, you will get into a confusion. Right? Point number one. So your reference book is covered in this, right? So what is reference book? There is practice questions also. That is also covered in your PPTs, right? Second thing is there is bulletins, right? There is bulletins issued by ICSI. So that questions also, practice questions, every month they issue 10 questions and notes also, something like that. So that is also, I have covered it in your study material, right? Third thing is outside questions also I have referred and incorporated for your level. So it's outside questions. Outside questions, right? And fourth thing would be your mock papers, which is issued by ICSI, right? That also we will be solving inside the class itself. So mock questions also we will be solving inside the class itself. So the main objective of all these things is you attend the class, you are done with the subject, right? You need not refer anything else. Yes, outside these things I'll be giving you practice questions for you to practice, right? Just to get a hang of things on your own independently. But overall, you need not refer any other material which I what to say other than this what I provide. Are we clear on this? Any questions regarding that? You can chat, right? And a small intro about myself would be, yeah, my name is Christopher. I've been teaching for almost 2 years, and economics is a cup of tea of mine. And yeah, so you have heard about the Arivu Pro app, right? So yeah, that's a venture of mine. I just co-founded that, and I'm a qualified CS and a qualified ACCA, right? And yeah, that's about me, and that's about the subject, right? So we will dive into it. Yes, any questions before I move on? So I'll give you time to ask you questions, so you need not worry about it, right? So I'll finish a concept, then I'll leave time for you to ask a question, so you can type a question just like that. Or yes, I would be sending all the PPTs which I have. The student edition, I would be sending it to you. This is the teaching edition. Certain things which are not required from a learning per se, I will be deleting it and giving to you. Righto. So the learning outcomes for today, we'll be taking up with the first chapter, that is demand and supply, price and markets. All right. I guess few of you have already attended this, but for the benefit of everyone, we are recapping it as well as we are doing it from the scratch, right? The first one, demand. So what is your understanding about demand? In normal sense, you let me know. You will say, I want it, I am demanding for it. Like this cute little baby, I want milk right here, right now. It's asking, right? That is demand for the baby. Is that demand? The answer would be no. In economics, he's demanding it. I want it. Is it demand in economics? The answer is no. So, what is demand in economics is what we are going to see, because all these normal terms we are going to see in economics terms or the subject of economics. So let's take an example of this car, and let's say I want to buy this car or you want to buy this car. So according to economics, what constitute a demand for this particular car from an economics point of view? For for me to qualify demand for this car, there are three things which I have to qualify. Three conditions also I can say it as. What are these three conditions which we will see one by one? One, I should have a desire for that product. I should want this car. I should have a desire to buy this car. That is the first condition to qualify demand in economics. Are we clear here? The second thing which I should fulfill is I should have money. I should have money or resources. Okay. I should have money or resources to buy that product, to buy the car. Third thing is I should be willing to spend that money to buy the car. Sir, I understood first and second one easily. Yeah, I want that car. Okay, I should have money for the car. What is this willingness to spend the money? I should be willing to spend whatever I have on the car to buy that product. That is, if three conditions are satisfied, that is demand. I'll give you another example. Let's take iPhone. Right? Everyone likes iPhone. Let's say for me, I liked iPhone. Okay. I have the money to buy also. Okay. Second condition is also satisfied. But I am not willing to spend 60,000, 70,000 to buy that iPhone. So the third condition I am failing. So I do not constitute a demand for a iPhone. Are we clear? What are the conditions for demand? Three conditions: desire, money, willingness to spend that money. If three things are ticked, then it is that you are fulfilling the demand condition. But demand cannot be just like that left alone. It has to be expressed. It will be always expressed for a particular price and for a particular period of time. Let me give you an example. Let's say potato. Okay. You like potato, right? Or paneer. Let's take whatever it is. Like I have the desire for potato. I have the money to buy the potato also. 10 rupees. Okay. Right? Willingness to spend that money also I have. But for a particular price, the potato is priced for a particular thing, right? Let's say I am pricing at 10 rupees, right? Then only you can quantify I have that money. If that potato is priced for 10 lakhs, will I have that money? No. So it is always expressed for a particular price. So if I change the price of the potato, my demand might change. My demand might change. Similarly, if it is also expressed for a particular period of time, what does this mean? Let's give an example to it. So I like potatoes. I am buying it for 10 rupees. Okay, good. But is it a one-time purchase? I might buy 1 kg of potato at 10 rupees for 1 week. But if I have to say what is the demand for 1 month, for 1 month, right, won't the value change? Assuming 4 weeks, right, then I'll buy 4 kg. Demand is 4 kg at 10 rupees for per month. For 1 week, it is 1 kg. So are you seeing demand is always expressed for a particular period of time, as well as for a particular period of particular price. These are the two things which you have to keep in mind. So these are the condition for any good to get qualified as demand, but demand is always expressed for a particular price and particular period of time. So if you read everything together, right, that is the definition of demand in economics. We will read it here, right? This is the book definition which is given to you, right? Demand is an economic principle referring to the consumer's desire to purchase goods and services and willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service, right? So they are complicated, the words. If you see desire, purchase the goods, that is money, willingness to pay for a particular price and time, it is interpreted. That is what the simple interpretation is there, right? And I told you that it is always for a period of time. So much you're demanding 1 kg for 1 week, right? 2 kg for 2 weeks, 3 kgs for 3 weeks, 4 kgs for a month. So it is a flow concept. It is not a constant, it's not a stock concept, it's a flow concept. It is a continuously changing process. So demand is a flow concept. This is what demand's definition is all about, right? Done. I want you to answer this question with me. I will announce a poll, right, on your desktop or on your app. There will be a question. Read the question and solve this so that it becomes easy for me to gauge whether you are understanding or not, right? And I want everyone to answer this so that it will be easy for you. And do not tick just like that. Read it carefully, then answer. Guys, I want everyone to answer. Please answer, because this is the first question. Some of you might be struggling. I do not know whether other teachers use these things, so that's why I'm giving the benefit of doubt. First question, I'm taking some time. After a while, I'll be going faster, right? Okay, I'll end the poll and I will share you the results, right? Guys, the answer for this would be D. Guys, demand for a commodity, as I told you, see here it's a quantity of a commodity demanded at a certain price. They are given here the demand. What is demand is what? Desire backed by ability to pay or willingness to pay. The three things, the demand alone, right, constitute desire, ability, money and willingness to pay. But demand for a commodity, as I told you previously, it is always mentioned for a particular price and for a particular period of time. So get this straight in your head. Are we clear? Done. Now, like I said for potato, right, let's take the potato itself forward. So is your potato buying only affected by how is demand for potato is getting affected? There are a lot of factors, right? One is the price, right? One is price of related commodities, income of a consumer, taste and preferences. All these factors affect a demand for potato or for a product in general. So the factors which determine demand is known as determinants of demand. I'll repeat again. Factors which determine demand is known as determinants of demand. Are we clear here? So price of a commodity, price of related commodities, income of a consumer, taste and preferences, consumer expectation, all these things affect demand. For giving an example, we'll go in detail. But don't you think, let's say, you do not like potato, which comes under taste and preferences, right? Will you buy potato? Will you have demand? No. Yes or no? So, like that, we have just, it's common sense, but they have framed a framework for this. And we are going to see one by one how a particular factor, that is price of a commodity, consumer expectation, is affecting demand in isolation. Are we clear, guys? Done. Very simple. This is the most fundamental first one, that is price for commodity. How a price of a commodity likes, affects demand. That is what we are going to see. Let's say Mr. Baby Thanos is there, and we'll customize it to India, right? Now, baby Thanos is there. Okay, he likes chocolate milk. Now, it is 10 rupees per liter. Okay, 10 rupees per liter. That is the price. Now, if price goes up, right? Thanos has only 10 rupees, let's assume. Okay, he has only 10 rupees. If price goes up, he goes away. Or in sense, demand comes down. If price goes up, demand comes down. Okay. If price comes down, demand goes up. Okay. This is the relationship between price and demand. Very simple relationship. And it's a common sense also. If something is too costly, will you go and buy it? No. But is when it's cheap, will you buy it? Ah, okay, chalte hain, let's go and buy it. Yes or no? Simple common sense only. Economics is documenting it. It is documenting common sense. If you put a pen down, it will fall down. That is gravity. It is through science they have studied. Similarly, in economics also through science they have studied this. If price goes up, demand will fall. If price comes down, demand will increase. Are we clear? So, added to this, we'll see more in detail a new concept called, from this concept itself, it's an old concept you might know, but a new concept anyway, called law of demand. What is this law of demand talking about? Like ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus. That means other things being equal or other things being constant. What is other things? I'll explain it to you in short time. Okay, it is saying the same thing. If price of the commodity falls down, the quantity demanded will increase. If price goes up, quantity demand so, sorry, the first one they're saying price goes down, quantity demand increases. If the price goes up, quantity demanded decreases. That's all they are saying. Okay, now ceteris paribus, other things being constant. This is what lot of students have confusion. Now I told you there are other factors of demand, determinants of demand, that is price of a commodity, income of a consumer, taste and preferences, consumer expectation. All these things they are saying are constant except for price change. That is the law of demand is what is stating. Nothing else is changing except for price, then the law is good. For example, let's say potato itself. Now corona time is there, right? Now tomorrow they are saying, or let's take mask, that would be much more simpler. Mask, right? There is shortage of mask. Okay, you are expecting if you do not put mask, corona will come. If prices of mask is increasing, won't you buy? Tell me. Because you need it, because other factors are affecting. So law of demand will not work that time. What they are saying ceteris paribus is that there is no corona or nothing. Everything is constant in a normal world, right? There is nothing changing, nothing extraordinary happening. In a simple world, if price increases, quantity will come down. That is what this ceteris paribus, that is everything is constant, everything is same, nothing is changing. Are we clear guys with the ceteris paribus, other things being constant? This is what the law is saying. Now if in mathematics you would have learned, if something is increasing, the other thing is decreasing. If one thing is increasing, the other thing is decreasing. That means they have a relationship, some relationship is there. Whenever I change one thing, this thing is also getting affected. So they have a relationship. Very good. But if one is increasing and the other is decreasing, or one is decreasing, the other is increasing, right? We call that relationship as inverse relationship. We call it as inverse relationship, that is between the price and quantity demanded in this case. So price falls down, quantity increases. Are we clear? Now, in mathematics, right, they define mathematic in an equation, they define dx, that is function of demand is equal to function of price. However the price reacts, demand also reacts. That's how, what is the demand equation they call it as. Are we clear? There are a lot more to it actually. Fx, fpx, comma ix, lot of things are there, but in your textbook this is a simple formula which they are given, so we'll stick by that. Are we clear? So what are the assumptions again? We have made assumptions, that is ceteris paribus, other things being constant. So there is no change in consumer income, there's no change in consumer preferences, everything is constant. All these 10 things are constant. Okay, for your understanding I've just written it down, you just read through it. Everything is constant except for price. That is the law of demand. Now I know that, right, for different quantities different units of commodities demanded. If potato, let's say it is priced as 10, I might buy 10. If it is priced at 4, I'll buy more of it, right? Now I present this in a table, it's called a demand schedule. If I present it in a table, it's called a demand schedule. If I present it in a curve, graph, we call it demand curve. I'll come to that later. Before that, understand what is market demand schedule also. What is market demand schedule? Market demand schedule, this is an individual demand schedule. This is, let's say, for one person. For potato, if he has 10 quantity demanded for 5 rupees, that is a individual's point of view. If you sum up all the individuals, your neighbors and everyone who is demanding potato, that is market demand schedule. Are we clear? Very simple concept. So that is what it is. Now I plot this table onto a graph, right? We are all experts in drawing, so we plot it in a graph. That is called a demand curve. Okay, same thing, you just plotted x-axis is this, y-axis this, you plotted it, it will come. So price is it, y-axis, quantity demanded is x-axis. Are we clear? This is the demand curve, you plot it onto the demand curve. I assume that everyone knows how to plot it on the demand curve, right? So even why assume, right? See here, 160, so plot it at 1 year and count in max. You would have done 60 here, plot here, then it is 235 here. See, connect the joints, you will get a demand curve. Are we clear? Now demand curve, you see this, it is a downward sloping curve. It is a downward sloping curve. Why we call this a downward sloping curve? Because as price increases, if you see the price is increasing, right? Sorry, as price decreases, if you see, the demand is increasing. There is increase in demand as there is price in falling. That is why we call this curve as downward sloping curve, and is also known as negative curve because there is a inverse relationship to price. Okay, there is an inverse relationship to price, so we call this as a negative slope. Demand curve, dd is nothing but demand. Okay, demand is a negative slope. Done. So I want you to take a look at this video, right? So take a look at this video and a lot of questions will be solved through this.
To find out what's the relationship between price and the quantity that's demanded. Let's make it really simple by keeping everything else constant. That means ceteris paribus. Given everything else constant, let's freeze them. Wow, only price and quantity left. With these two variables, we can draw two axes. The convention is to put the price on the vertical axis and the quantity on the horizontal axis.
Can you hear it clearer?
Remember, as consumers, we want to stretch our dollar. At $2, ew, apples are expensive. We'll only get one apple. But at $1, whoa, apples are cheaper now. We'll get 3 apples. Then we connect the dots. Ta-da! The demand curve. Note, it's downward sloping. Quantity increases. The arrows are always in opposite directions. This is the law of demand. There's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, ceteris paribus, given everything else constant. Why? First, it's because of substitution effect. When apples get more expensive, we substitute apples with something else, like oranges, so we buy fewer apples. There's also the income effect.
So, as he said, there is a two reasons why this law of demand works. It is not there in your portions, but anyhow, know it. Okay, the reason is a substitution effect and income effect. Together, put together, it is known as price effect. Okay, price effect is nothing but a substitution effect and income effect. Are we clear? Like what he said, if a price of a commodity increases so much, you substitute with another product. Okay, in income effect, we'll see it, then I'll explain it to you.
Given the same income, when apples get more expensive, our purchasing power erodes. We feel our wallets shrinking. Remember the summary from the previous video? Why did I state quantity demanded here?
Okay, got it, guys? So, as your prices of a commodity increases, your wallet shrinks in the sense that you can buy less of it also. That is also another reason why it is so. Done. So, any questions with regards to till now what we have covered? Please ask your questions because we are going to the Q&A. Alright then. If no questions, I will go to the poll. Guys, now I want you to answer faster with regards to your questions. Please answer fast. Right? Tick, 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 tick. Very straightforward one, and the answer is very simple, right? That is C. Dx is nothing but fpx, right? Straight from the book, straight from what do you say, you get 1 mark, right? So simple. Done. We move to the next question. Please answer this one. Please read the question, answer it. Very straight one, downward sloping curve. Very straightforward. Next one, can you read this and answer? The law of demand, assuming other things is to remain constant, establish the relationship between what and what. That is the question. Please answer it. Very easy question. If 22 participants are there, please try to answer. 22 people. Don't be lazy. And for those who are seeing it online videos, pause and answer it so that you train yourself over a period of time. Right? Just listening to the classes will not help. You have to practice. So the answer for this would be price of a good and the quantity demanded. Okay, straightforward, almost 80% got right. So yeah. Next one. Can we talk about it again? Yes. This is outside your portions, but nevertheless, I want you to be trained. Right? It is not there in your reference book. Does not mean it's outside your portions, but you can never be sure of what cannot be asked. So I want you to train 360. We saw this in the video. I'll give you a clue. And I told also. This shows how attentive you guys are. Okay, guys, the answer is D, price effect. I told you price effect is nothing but when you divide it, it is substitution and income effect. So price effect is nothing but income effect and substitution effect put together. Okay, so know that. It is also known as negative price demand effect. So you need not, that's outside your portion, but anyhow, that's for the information. Now we'll move on to the next topic. But anyhow, guys, any questions till now? No questions? Any questions, guys? Till now, are we all 100% clear? All clear? Or everything is clear, sir? Going inside here or going outside? This itself. Done. Anyhow, we'll go to the next topic. Exception to law of demand. What is this exception? In a classroom, there are always good boys and bad boys and all. Similarly, these guys, when there is a law, these guys do not obey. That is called exception to law of demand. So what law of demand says? If price goes up, demand will fall. That is what law of demand says. Correct? But these goods will not obey it. These goods will not obey it. Guys, note one thing. Need not be that if price goes up, if it's exception to law of demand means it is not necessary that if price goes up, demand also should go up. It can stay constant. That is also exception. Okay. I'll repeat again. It is not necessary if it's an exception. If price goes up, demand also should go up. Okay, that is opposite. What is exception? It does not obey law of demand. Price goes up, demand will go down. That is what law of demand says. There can be cases where price goes up, demand is constant. That is also exception only. Very clear? Just food for thought. But nevertheless, we'll move on. Okay. First one is Giffen goods. Second one is snob appeal or snob goods or Veblen goods also they're called as. Third one is speculation goods. Fourth one is consumer psychological bias. We'll see that one by one and go about things, right? I have interesting videos also for these things. We'll see it one by one. Snob appeal. What is this snob appeal means? Nothing made. It is also known as conspicuous goods. Conspicuous goods. I'll zoom it in for you to read it better. Right? That would be better for you. Otherwise, sir, gottilla sir, you'll say. Done. So, conspicuous goods. What is this conspicuous goods means? Attention seeking goods or attractive goods. These goods are conspicuous goods. For example, diamond or gold, platinum, right? They are all stones. If you look at it, fundamentally, what are they? Stones. Yes or no? But you have some value towards it. This is precious, da. Because attractive, right? So that is why they do not obey. If it's more costlier and costlier, people tend to buy more of it sometimes, right? So that is what it is all about, conspicuous goods. So let's read it. Sometimes certain commodities are demanded just because they happen to be expensive or prestigious. That effect is known as snob effect. We'll see this in more in detail. Okay, because it's costly, someone wants to buy it. That effect is known as snob effect. Are we clear? Or it is also known as Veblen effect. Snob, Veblen. Sorry, there's difference between snob and Veblen effect. We'll see it one by one. Right? That Veblen effect takes place where some consumers measure the utility of a commodity by its price. Some consumers think because it's costly, it's good. Okay. As such, they buy less of the commodity at low price and more of it at high price. Diamond is an example of this. Okay. I have a video for you to understand snob effect in detail. I'll play it so you will understand with lot of visual effects. Listen to it.
Named after economist Thorstein Veblen, who introduced the term conspicuous consumption, a Veblen good is one whose demand increases as its price increases, because consumers see it as an exclusive status symbol. Unlike most goods, which have a downward sloping demand curve because demand goes down as price goes up, a Veblen good has an upward sloping demand curve. Veblen goods are high-quality, coveted items. They are designer, luxury items with a strong brand identity, and they are not sold in regular stores. These goods are priced so high that only the very affluent can afford them. The higher the price, the less likely other consumers can afford them, and the more buyers perceive them to signal great wealth and success. If a Veblen's good price decreases, demand will decrease, because status-conscious consumers will see it as less exclusive. James is a multi-millionaire baseball player. He can afford any car he wants. While a $10,000 used pickup truck would suit his needs, he doesn't even drive that much since he's on the road for games so often. He decides to purchase a $200,000 luxury car so that people will know someone important and successful is inside when he's at home and needs to get around town. James loves the feeling he gets from driving a car that almost no one else can afford. For James, his $200,000 car is a symbol of his status as an elite major league athlete. A $50,000 or even $100,000 car wouldn't satisfy him because too many other people could afford it.
Are we clear with this concept? Veblen goods. Done. Now, second concept. So this is exception to law of demand. Okay, Veblen goods do not follow law of demand. Now, Giffen goods. What is Giffen goods? Okay, Giffen, it is named after the scientist actually. Giffen, economist called Giffen. Right? We'll see this in detail. What is giffen good? There are three conditions for to qualify as a giffen good. Again, I'll repeat. There are three conditions to qualify as a giffen good. What are that? First, they are inferior goods. They are, first condition is they are inferior goods. Second thing is there is no close substitute for these goods. This is the second condition to qualify as a giffen good. Third condition is they occupy a substantial place in the consumer budget. They occupy a substantial place in the consumer budget. If these three things are ticked, then only we call this goods as giffen goods. Okay, what is this inferior goods? I'll explain it here more. Okay, inferior goods means when your income is increasing, your income is increasing, demand for this product comes down. I'll repeat again. If your income increases, demand comes down, those goods are classified as inferior goods. Are we clear here? What does inferior goods means? For example, let's take what do you say? A low quality rice. Okay, you are doing your CS articleship, right? You were not rich enough. You used to buy C grade rice or D grade rice. Once you became a company secretary, you got promotion, you were like, now only A grade basmati rice. Right? What happened to the C grade rice demand? Fell down because your income increased. Those goods are known as inferior goods. Okay, that is the first point. Second thing is there is no close substitute. There is no substitute for this product. Third point is it occupies a substantial place in the consumer budget. Are we clear? If these three things, budget means what? Your income level is 100 rupees, more than 50 rupees, 50% of your money you spend on this product only. That is substantial place in consumer budget. So these three conditions which satisfy, they are known as giffen goods. But note one thing, these are all artificial in nature. In real life, you cannot give an example for this. But we will take a video, understand what it is. Hope you guys understand, but let's see.
A giffen good is a product whose demand increases as its price increases and falls when its price falls. A giffen good runs contrary to the fundamental law of demand, which says that as the price of a product increases, its demand will decrease. Named for late economist Robert Giffen, giffen goods are considered so rare that some economists doubt their existence. Usually, for one to exist, a segment of consumers consider a giffen good to be essential. As the goods price increases, consumers must spend a larger portion of their income to consume the same amount. Giffen goods generally require two conditions. They must be a staple good in a...
Guys, there are three conditions. Okay, this is a video, so we are not customized it according to our standards. So there are three conditions. So that is what.
Or community with few, if any, substitutions, and the households are so poor they consume only staple goods. For example, say in a poor community the price of bread increases to the point where other foods that are more expensive, like meat, become luxuries. The demand for meat decreases because it's too expensive. Meanwhile, people buy more bread because even with the price increase, it's what they can afford.
Okay, the last one, did you listen carefully? So here what they said was there's a slum community here. Okay, they normally used to buy bread and meat. Okay, so bread is their staple diet, right? Side dish is meat. they buy very less of it, but they fill their stomachs with bread. So when the prices of bread increased, right? Prices increase. What the scientists, I mean economists saw is they purchased more of bread and cut down meat. Are we clear? So because he concluded that this is an inferior good. Secondly, people can, and there's no substitute for bread because that's a staple diet. Third thing is it occupied a substantial place in their budget. Are we clear? So it is more like, if this price is increasing, bread is increasing, I have to sacrifice meat to eat some bread at least. Okay, that is the concept between Giffen goods. Are we clear? So the main takeaway is they exhibit a direct relationship. As you saw in the video, they exhibit a direct relationship. That is, we saw inverse relationship. We have to understand this direct relationship. Direct relationship means if price goes up, demand also goes up. If price goes up, demand also goes up. If price comes down, demand also comes down. Are we clear here? Right? So all Giffen goods are inferior goods, but not all inferior goods are not Giffen goods. This inferior goods we'll be dealing more in the coming slide, right? And I'll connect it to this when it is necessary. Okay, even if you have not understood what is inferior goods, right? We'll have more examples and we'll connect it much more better. Now, third point, consumer psychological bias. When a consumer is wrongly biased against the quality of the commodity with price change, he may contract this demand with fall in price. Right? He might be biased. Why it's getting cheap, then it should be cheap product. Let's not buy it. Sometimes you would have said, hey, it's getting cheap, why should I buy it? Right? So that biasness all will come. So that is consumer bias. Right? So that time it might not follow law of demand. Last one is speculative goods. Speculative goods means goods which are traded in the stock market. For example, stocks, shares, debentures. These goods are speculative goods. They buy and sell in the market. Now, for example, let's take Jio. Nanta. So, Jio share price is increasing. Two scenarios I'll give. A scenario, Jio share price is increasing. Second scenario, share prices, let me write it here. Share price is decreasing. Where will you buy? If you have to buy a share, which scenario will you buy the share? You will buy it at the A scenario because you know the share price is increasing. But price is increasing here, no? This price increases, demand also is increasing here if you see here. In the B case, Jio share is falling down, but you are not buying. So that is the exception. For speculative goods, as long as the price is increasing, demand is more. Are we clear? Done. So can you answer this question, please? Everyone. In case of Giffen goods, the demand curve would be what? Diksha, I'll come to your question. Huh? I've noted it down. I'll come to it. Okay, the right answer is upward sloping curve. I told you Giffen goods establish a direct relationship. What is direct relationship? Price increases, demand increases. So on the demand curve, price is here, Demand is here, we all know. If price is increasing, demand is also increasing. Won't the graph look like this for demand given goods? Yes or no, guys? Tell me. So that is what the answer is. So D, upward sloping towards the right. Now, please answer this. Conspicuous goods. Poll. So the answer for this is all of the above. Guys, conspicuous is known also prestigious goods, snob goods, Veblen goods. Okay. So you need not worry about it. Are we clear? So Diksha, have you is the question answered for you? Snob appeal and Veblen effect is all same only. Are we clear? There is another effect which I will be coming to you. That time we will speak about. There is two effects, different effects. Under demonstration effect, there are two effects. There will be snob effect and Veblen effect. That time I will come and tell you what it is. But in this case, it is the same. Because something is costly, people go and buy. Snob effect is normally something is cheap, so some people do not want to buy. Are we clear? But that we will see more in detail once we come to the topic. Are we clear, guys? Any questions? Diksha, hope I have answered your question. Done. Now, guys, we have 1 hour is over. So, normal human brain consumption is for 1 hour, right? We are done with the price of a commodity. Now, we'll see the other determinants of demand also, right? In the coming slides. We'll take a 15 minutes break. Okay. Now, the time is 5:10. Okay. We'll take a 15 minutes break. So,